the premise of the video is that I explain Tenet to you as best I can, and then you have to, as concisely as possible, re-explain Tenet to me / the audience. But I thought it would be funny if at any point I forgot something in Tenet, I would have to take a shot. I want to get Jaeger, because that's what I have. And I might not forget anything, but I probably will. So, we'll see.
I mean, you forgot things just when you were telling me about it on the phone.
The rules are, I explain the plot of Tenet. If I forget anything, I have to take a shot of Jaeger. Then Kayla re-explains the plot when I'm finished, however long that takes. And if she messes up, she dies.
Yeah.
So. Cool.
High stakes.
Yeah. I also wanted to show the camera my Jack Daniels shot glass that I'm gonna be pouring Jaeger in. Jagermeister, a Jack Daniels glass. I don't give a damn. So I'm gonna cue one of these up just for when it happens.
Don't knock it over.
I'll try. See if that's foreshadowing for me knocking it over. Okay, Tenet is a movie that I watched twice. I feel like that's probably more than most people have watched it.
Definitely more than I've watched it.
Yeah, you've never seen it. It's by Christopher Nolan. He directed it. I think he wrote it too, and it kind of shows because some of the dialogue is just whack. It starts out and it's a CIA agent. He's just called the protagonist. He doesn't have a name. And it starts out with him doing this CIA operation at an opera house. These terrorists show up to an opera house. They're taking hostages. SWAT team shows up. The CIA dude is on the SWAT team. But on the team he's on is these Russian dudes. And the Russian dudes aren't actually SWAT, and neither is he. So there's real SWAT, Russian SWAT, and him on the Russian SWAT team, right? So his CIA order is to find a CIA contact who's there at the opera house. The protagonist gets to this contact and he's like, oh, we live in a twilight world. And that's... No. He's like, we live in a twilight world, and that's CIA code. And then the dude says some other bullcrap. I literally can't remember. So the dude's like, he says the response code phrase, where's the package? And he's like, oh, it's at coat check. He's like, all right, come on. And they're like trying to escape. He's trying to get this dude out without him getting killed. And the Russians are trying to kill him because they want the package. The Russians want the package. The terrorists have it for some reason. But there's a package and the protagonist wants it. And it's at the it's at coat check. And he runs to coat check and he does this really cool slide. Yeah. Under the coats. And the slide is cool. Best part of the movie is this slide he does. He has like the ticket and he finds the package and he opens it and it's this weird cube. Right? And he gets out of there, and as he's leaving, one of the Russian SWAT dudes has like a bomb. And he's like planting a bomb where the fucking hostages are. Like the whole opera house is full of people. They knocked them all out. Crap, I forgot. Okay. I forgot to mention, I have to take a shot. The SWAT team knocked everyone out in the opera house, except the terrorists, they had gas masks on. So SWAT has gas masks on. It's not an important detail, but I did forget to mention it. Okay. Okay, this is only gonna get harder the more shots I take.
Yeah. Maybe you should do half shots.
No.
Okay.
There's like a bullet hole next to him.
Yeah.
And like there's like debris like around it and smoke. And then like the smoke's like getting closer to the bullet hole. And then like right as the dude is about to kill the protagonist, a fucking bullet pops out backwards from the bullet hole and hits the dude that's about to kill the protagonist, and it goes into the gun of this other SWAT guy, right? Who's like moving backwards, and the protagonist is like, what the fuck? The backwards dude, he like fucking runs off, and when he turns around he sees he's got this little token thing on his backpack. He gets out of there. The Russians fucking kidnap him. You're like, I'm already forgetting shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Russians kidnap him. They start pulling his teeth out. They're trying to figure out who he works for. And he doesn't give anyone up. And then he takes a fucking suicide pill and he dies.
Would you say that them trying to get information from him was like pulling teeth?
Yes. He takes a suicide pill and he dies, and then he wakes up in a hospital and his teeth are back, and there's a dude there, and he's like, oh, you've been in a coma, we picked you up and we've been rebuilding your mouth and now you're out of the coma. And he's like, oh, okay. The suicide pill was fake? And he's like, yeah, it was a test. And he's like, a test? And he's like, yeah, you didn't give up any of your men. You would rather die than give up your men, so you passed the test. And then he's like, there's a secret Cold War going on, colder than ice.
There's a Cold War, cold as ice.
And the protagonist is like, I resign, I quit, this is bullshit, I don't like any of this. And he's like, you can't resign, it's bigger than that. And the protagonist is like, okay, what do you want me to do? And he's like, all I have for you is a gesture. And he does this, and he's like, followed by a phrase, Tenet. And he's like, he goes to this fucking, think it's a university, and he tries to open a door and it doesn't open, and there's a scientist there. And she's like, oh, a clipboard and a high visibility vest can get you anywhere. And he's like, he fucking does the hand thing, and he's like, an obscure Tenet. And she's like, oh, like this is one of the guys. So she like lets him into this door that he was trying to get into. And then she shows him this big old slab with bullet holes in it. And she gives him a gun, and she's like, oh, pull the trigger. And he pulls the trigger, and fucking a bullet sucks out of the slab, and it goes into his gun. And he's like, what the shit, motherfucker? And she's like, its entropy is reversed, and we think it has something to do with some sort of reverse radiation, and we're trying to stop it. And that's what the Tenet organization is. He's like, okay, cool. He traces the alloy in the bullet to this certain weapons dealer in India. His name's something Singh, like David Singh or something. And he's like, yeah, it's Lily Singh's. He needs to meet up with this dude to like ask him like, why are your bullets traveling backwards through time? What's the deal, dog? The dude's like pretty hard to get to. So he calls up one of his CIA buddies, and he's like, the narwhal bacons at midnight. And the dude's like, oh, what do you need? And he's like, I need someone to get me an audience with fucking Lily Singh's. And the guy's like, okay, I'll send someone. Go to this place at this time.
Bombay Yacht Club in 2 hours.
So he goes to that place at that time, and Robert Pattinson's there, right?
Yes.
Don't remember his name. So he's Robert Pattinson for the whole rest of this video. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So Robert Pattinson's there, and he's all looking at protagonist like... And then they're talking, and he's like, oh, we need to get into this place. And he's like, okay, we'll bungee jump into there, right?
Yeah, best course of action.
And then like a waiter comes, and Robert Pattinson's like, oh, I'll have a gin and tonic, and he'll have a Diet Pepsi.
Coke tonic, and a Diet Coke.
He looks at the protagonist, and he's like, yeah, I did my research. I know you never drink on the job. And then he's like, I prefer tonic water. And Robert Pattinson's like, no, you don't. They shoot like a thing up, and they like have a machine like stretch a bungee cord, and it's strapped to them, and it like launches them, and they like run up the building all fucking cool. Mm-hmm. And they get up to the building, and they're like fucking icing people, and then like he gets up to Lily Singh, the man, the dude, the arms dealer who made or sold the reverse bullet. And he has a gun to his head, and he's like, fuck you, motherfucker. What's with these motherfucking bullets, bitch?
A direct quote.
That's exactly what he says. The dude's wife is like, oh, she puts her hands together, and she's like, it's one of his tenets that he won't give up his customers or whatever.
To say anything about a client would violate the tenets he lives by.
And then the protagonist, while holding the gun, he goes, if tenets mean a lot to you, then you should tell me everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
If tenets are important to you, then you can tell me everything.
It cuts to them sitting down talking to each other. She was like, my name's Priya. I'm the actual arms dealer. My husband's just a front, so people are afraid of him.
She's the real Lily Singh's.
Yeah, she's really Lily Singh's. She's like, but you know, people don't respect women as much or whatever, so... He's like the front man. The guy's like, okay, cool. He's like, what's up with these bullets? And she's like, oh, I sold those to bad guy Tenet. Andre Sator.
Oh, so he's the bad guy.
Huh?
He's the bad guy?
He's the bad guy. She's like, I sold them to him, and they weren't reversed when I sold them to him. Mm. And he's like, oh, okay, so this is the guy I need to talk to. He's the one reversing shit. And she's like, yeah, he's in contact with people from the future. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, like they have technology that can reverse things. Entropy. The technology hasn't been invented yet, but he's in contact with people from the future, so they can send him reverse stuff for him to use. And he's like, okay, how do I get in contact with him? She's like, oh, go talk to Michael Caine. So he goes to talk to Michael Caine, and Michael Caine's like, oh, Andre Sator, he has a wife, and his wife sells art, but she sold forgery art to her husband. So that's your in to get, like, to able to talk to Sator, is to talk to his wife. And pretend you're, like, an art dealer. Here's a forgery, bring it to her, try and get an audience with, the dude. And then that's the whole reason Michael Caine's in the movie. And you never see him again.
Huh.
So he goes and talks to the wife, and she's like, yeah, man, he's like blackmailing me, my husband, with this painting. I just want to get away from him. So the protagonist is like, I'll steal the painting, I'll take that gambling chip off the table, and then you'll be free to leave him, you know? You won't have that hanging over your head anymore. All you have to do in exchange is let me meet him so I can talk to him. He's like planning out, she tells him like where the painting is. It's like at this airport. It's like a tax loophole. You can hide art at an airport or something. It won't get taxed because it's not in any specific country, and you can like move it between airports with this security company called Rotas, which is, and Andre Sater's name backwards. They do that a lot, like backwards shit.
Wow.
So he's like looking into this place and how to rob it, and Robert Pattinson's there, help him out. And then this other dude shows up, can't remember his name, he has a beard. He's like, yeah, we're gonna crash the 747 into the fucking airport. That's gonna go off, and then you guys can get in there and steal the shit. So him and Robert Pattinson, they scope out the place, and they're pretending to be like businessmen who want to like hide their art there too, you know? Like they're talking to the security company for that reason. So they get in there, and the 747 crashes, and like their tour guide bails, and they're like, okay, we're in, and they're like fucking doing all this shit.
Yeah.
I forgot something. While they're like plotting out how to steal the painting, the protagonist mentions, oh, in the center of this fucking airport place, there's something big they're hiding there. Like there's a weird amount of space for something. He's like, bring gloves and stuff. I don't know, like it might be radiated. And Robert Pattinson's like, oh, is it like nuclear technology or something? And he's like, just, we don't know. We'll find out when we get there, you know?
Yeah.
So the protagonist thinks Sator is just storing his reverse weapons there, you know? Mm-hmm. So when they're breaking in and they fucking get into the center of the place, there's like all this weird shit going on. Like there's fucking bullet holes already, and there's like a disassembled gun on the ground. There's like 2 doors that lead into this place, and Robert Pattinson goes down one door, and then the protagonist goes down the other door. There's a piece of glass where they can see each other. Robert Pattinson's about to touch a bullet hole, and the protagonist is like, no, don't touch it. Because like reverse radiation, like the protagonist knows like it's dangerous to touch stuff going backwards through time.
Mm-hmm.
And then
But why?
Don't know.
But he knows.
Yeah. So Robert Pattinson's like, what happened here? And the protagonist is like, it hasn't happened yet. And then these doors at the end of the room open up, and there's fucking a SWAT guy on each side. One SWAT guy fucking runs past Robert Pattinson, and the other SWAT guy fucking just starts beating the shit out of the protagonist. And like the fucking gun flies up from the air because it's going backwards through time. So instead of dropping it, it just fucking like sucks into his hand.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's like firing bullets, like reverse bullets past the protagonist's head, and they're sucking into the gun. And they're like fighting each other all down the hallway and going backwards and shit. They're doing all this weird stuff. Like the choreography's intense because a lot of it is happening backwards. Like certain throws and stuff are like reversed. Like he goes to like suplex the dude, but instead of looking like a suplex, it looks like he grabs him and sets him on the ground. Like it's bizarre. And then he like finally gets a hold of the SWAT guy, and he's like about to shoot him in the head. But at the same time, Robert Pattinson ripped the SWAT mask off the other guy, and he's like, oh shit, and he realizes something, and he runs back to the protagonist, and he's like, no, don't kill him. So the protagonist shoots the fucking SWAT guy in the arm, and he's like, how did you know we'd be here, you know? Because he thinks they're compromised. Like,
yeah.
How the fuck did someone know we were going to break into this place?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of mole in the Tenet system? Like, what's going on? He doesn't even fully trust Robert Pattinson yet, because Robert Pattinson keeps knowing too many things, like that he likes Diet Pepsi. He like shoots him, and he's talking to him, and the SWAT guy's not talking back, and then he like gets reversed rolls through a door and fucking disappears.
Just fucks off.
Yeah. He just like all of a sudden he's getting like sucked out and he's just gone. And they're like, okay. And they bail. And they never steal the painting that he was supposedly there for in the first place. He didn't find any ammo like he thought he was going to. Instead, they just found a reverse dude and fought him. He goes back to the wife. Can't remember her name. but Sator's wife, and he's like, oh, the painting's taken care of, just get me an audience with him. So he meets up with the guy, and they're like talking about shit, and there's something that happens. I can't remember the order in which it happens, so I don't count this as me forgetting something. He goes and he talks to Priya, the girl who's actually in charge of weapons dealing, and he's like, I ran into a reverse antagonist, he calls him. It's like, there were two antagonists at the airport. One of them was reverse entropied. I don't know what the fuck was going on. She's like, they both came out of the thing at the same time? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, they were the same person. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, yeah, bro.
How did she know that?
Because she has her own fucking technology to fucking reverse people.
And why shouldn't she tell him that in the first place?
Because it's like a need-to-know basis kind of thing.
Well, if he's already there fucking looking into that stuff, like, I feel like that's a need-to-know basis. And he's with the Tenet people.
As little information as they can get out to people as possible, the better. According to them, like,
but they're part of the Tenet thing.
Their strongest weapon is people not knowing things, is like something they say, something along those lines. They're like, misinformation is our strongest tool, or some crap like that. I can't remember. She's like, yeah, those are the same person, bro. She's like, you need to fucking meet up with Sator, and he wants plutonium. Plutonium is what they think the fucking crap is from the beginning, the opera scene, the package was in that weird cube. They think there's plutonium in it. Right? They're like, Andre wants plutonium, and they think it's like the fuel for reversing time or some crap like that. The dude got that plutonium, he gave it to the CIA. So now he has to steal it from the CIA to give it to Sator so that he can learn more information about the reverse technology. So that's his new plan that Priya tells him to do.
So she doesn't explain how her reverse technology works?
She might not tell him that yet. I can't remember. She tells him that at some point. The movie's kind of...
The movie would be shorter if this bitch didn't fucking just keep her mouth shut.
He goes to Sator and he's like, oh, I'll help you steal the stuff. And the guy's like, okay. Sator's like, he's like willing to do it. He doesn't really trust the protagonist, but he's like, yeah, I need help doing this shit. He brings his wife with him to look at some artwork. He's like, oh, I need you to come see if this artwork is real. And he's like showing her guns and stuff, and she's like, what the fuck is going on? She pulls a gun out on him, and he like beats her up and kicks her in the stomach and yells at her and says some corny lines. And then he takes her into a machine that kind of looks like the one in the airport. And then he tells his fucking peeps, he's like, tell me everything that happens. It doesn't really explain what the fuck is happening. Then it cuts to fucking the protagonist robbing an armored truck to get the plutonium. Okay, so what's hard about this part is I don't fully understand what the fuck was happening in this specific scene. But anyway, so the protagonist and Robert Pattinson and the dude with the beard, they came up with a plan to steal the fucking plutonium. And they rob this armored truck, and like the protagonist is on a fire truck ladder, and he like cuts a hole in the armored truck, and he gets in and he steals the suitcase with the plutonium in it. And then he gets back in his car. All of a sudden, a car driving backwards is coming up to them. And it rolls the window down, and Sator is in there. And he has a mask on, right? Like a oxygen mask. And he's pointing a gun at his wife. And he counts 3, 2, 1. And then the protagonist throws him the case, right? They get the case, and they drive off, and then... I don't remember what the fuck happens. Because somehow someone kidnaps the protagonist and takes him to the machine that Sator was in, and he took his wife through. So this part's a little muddied, but the protagonist doesn't know what's going on either. He takes him to this machine, and Sator's on the other side of the machine. He's talking to him in reverse, but then there's a speaker that's playing it forward so he can understand what he's saying. He's asking questions. He's like, where's the fucking plutonium? Because he didn't actually hand it off. He's like, did you put it in your car, or is it in the fire truck? The protagonist is like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And he's like, I'll kill my wife, bro. Like, don't test me, man. But he's talking in reverse. And he's like, what is going on? And then, like, he puts his wife against the thing, and he, like, reverse shoots her. And it's weird. And then he goes through the thing, and then he's gone. Like, like, 2 Sators go in the thing on each side, and then they disappear. Like, 2 Sators go in, none come out. And they're like, where did he go? And they're like, oh, he's in the past. They're like, oh, he's in the past. He's like, all right. So She got reversed. The wife got reverse shot. Both Sators are gone, but he left his shot wife on the other side. So they bring her around to his side, and Robert Pattinson's there, and all these other dudes are there. And the protagonist is like, what the fuck is going on, man? He was doing a reverse pincer move it, man. He was fucking going through time, and like he knew shit from the past, and he knew shit from the future all at the same time, bro. Like, that's the way it works. Like, stop thinking about time in a linear way. They're like, oh, she's gonna die, man. Like, she got shot, and like this reverse radiation's gonna fuck her up. She's gonna be dead in a few hours. He's like, well, what if we put her through the machine? And then like Robert Pattinson's like, oh, that like counteracts the reverse radiation and she'll have time to heal. And he's like, okay, I'm going through. So they all go through the machine and they come out the other end. He's like, okay, like the reverse radiation stabilized, but she's gonna need a week to heal. And he's like, how are we gonna get moving forward through time? This technology wasn't invented a week ago. And he's like, yes, it was, because a week ago we're at the airport and the antagonist came out, right? So we know that technology's there, so we can re-put ourselves through time. He's like, okay, well, I'm gonna try and stop the handoff and get the fucking plutonium back. They're like, okay, you need oxygen, and they give him like an oxygen mask, because they're like, oh, like you need reverse air to breathe. Like, you can't breathe air that's moving forward through time. Hot and cold are reversed when you're traveling backwards through time, so like if you get burned, you'll actually be frozen. And he's like, okay, cool, I get it. And he's like, can I drive a car? And they're like, yeah, but like friction is reversed and like wind resistance is reversed. So it's going to be strange. If you jump down somewhere, gravity will seem normal for you, but it'll look like you're flying up to the people going forwards through time. Like, he understands it all pretty quickly.
What does time have to do with temperature?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
So physicists have like looked into this and they're like, yeah, no, if like he was traveling backwards through time, it wouldn't reverse how like hot and cold work.
Would it even reverse fucking oxygen? Oxygen is oxygen.
You would think, but I guess not, because like you're trying, so like oxygen moves forward through time, so if you're trying to inhale, like it's trying to exhale or something.
My lungs work the same, hopefully.
You would think. He goes backwards through time and he's trying to stop the handoff and he's trying to stop the chick from getting shot. Like, Robert Pattinson's like, man, what happens. Like, destiny's destiny, bro. Like,
if homegirl's gonna die, she's gonna die.
Yeah. So he's driving backwards and he's like chasing down the car that's like also going backwards through time. It's a really cool like backwards car chase, but like it's pointless because he doesn't fix anything. He ends up wrecked, and then the fucking Sator guy fucking lights the gasoline in his wrecked car on fire, and his fucking car explodes. And then he wakes up from a coma and he's like under a fucking space blanket, and Robert Pattinson's there and he's like, you're the first person to get hyperthermia from a fucking gasoline explosion, man. And he's like, oh, how's Sator's wife doing? And he's like, oh, she's recovering, but she needs a couple more days. We're on a fucking shipping container that was shipped to the place they were at, that was shipped to the second technology place, but where it was shipped from was the airport. So they got in that, and since they're traveling backwards through time, they went from where it was shipped to where it was shipped from, right? Mm-hmm. And they just hide in the cargo container, and they're like, so we're gonna be at the airport soon. We need to get ready to fucking go in this airport and like put ourselves forward back through time. As soon as they get there, the 747 has already crashed into the building. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh shit, this is like the exact moment where we were there. So they're like running up, like through this explosion, and like the fire's like sucking into itself instead of exploding out. Mm-hmm. And like all the paramedics are like running backwards to them, yeah, because time is reversed for them. And it's pretty bizarre looking, like it's pretty cool. And then like this weird reverse explosion happens and it fucking knocks the protagonist through this door, and all of a sudden the protagonist is in his SWAT suit getting beaten up by himself. Yeah. And a fucking bullet goes through his arm reversed, and it like heals his arm immediately. Mm-hmm. And then he gets in a reverse fight with himself, fighting his way to the center of the airport so he can get in the machine and leave. And as he leaves, he runs past Robert Pattinson, who rips off his mask and sees that it's the protagonist. So he's like, oh, I have to stop the protagonist from killing the protagonist right now. I hate that he doesn't have a name. This is a small little aside, but I don't know. That's just something I thought about. Where was I what was... So he's going forwards through time, and he goes and he talks to Priya again. I fucked up. Sador has the plutonium, and she's like, nah, bro, it's not plutonium. It's part of an algorithm. There's a scientist in the future who created an algorithm which reverses time for the whole world. Because in the future, everything's so fucked up. They're like, well, if we just reverse everything, we can literally rewind it and go back to a point where things work again. But I forgot to mention something. When the protagonist first goes backward through time, they tell him, you can't touch yourself. So, according to the rules of Tenet, if someone traveling backwards through time touches their traveling forward through time self, it's antimatter touching matter and annihilation.
So why didn't the protagonist die?
Because he was wearing a full fucking SWAT suit and he wasn't actually skin to skin contact. Yeah. If the algorithm actually works, all of the matter on Earth will start turning backwards and it will just annihilate everything and all life in the universe will be destroyed.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty high stakes.
Yeah, so this scientist realized that's probably what's going to happen. If we reverse the whole world to try and fix all the climate change and bullshit we did, we'll probably just destroy everything. Instead of completing the algorithm and trying it, she created a physical object that represents the algorithm and then divided it into 9 pieces and put it in time capsules throughout, like sent it in reverse time, like reverse entropied it and sent it backwards through time at different parts of the world. And that last piece of plutonium that Sator was trying to get was the final piece of the algorithm he needed to have the whole thing. That's what Priya tells him. She's like, it's not plutonium, even though I told you it was. It's actually part of the algorithm. It's the last piece. And now he's gonna destroy the whole world. If you kill him, it like creates an auto trigger and the algorithm goes and the whole world is destroyed. Unless we steal the algorithm from him, the whole world... I'm fucking buzzing so hard right now. It's so much harder to explain what the fuck is happening. We have to steal the algorithm from him without him knowing, because if he knows too much, he can reverse time and stop it from happening or something.
Why would he do that? Why would he... He wants to kill himself too? Fuck it.
Well, his wife is like, oh, he has pancreatic cancer. So he wants to die and take the whole world with him.
Piss baby.
Yeah. So they have to go steal the algorithm.
Why did Priya come up with the plan to fucking hand it off to him anyway? Like, they could have just stolen it themselves.
Well, at that point in time, maybe they didn't know. I don't fucking know.
Because she was the one who came up with the plan.
Well, okay, so he wouldn't have... The only way they could stop him, I guess, from going after it, like, he would have kept going after it and kept doing weird reverse time schemes and shit. They assumed he would keep doing that. The only way they could know for sure that he would stop going after it is if he thought he had it and they took it from him at that point, and then after he's sure he doesn't have it, then he can die. Like, he has to be sure he has it all together and is going to send it to the future, to his future peeps who their whole goal is to set it off, the algorithm. And then he goes to his place where he wants to die, which is back in Vietnam, where his wife still was being lovey-dovey on him, right? When he went through the thing during the little trade-off where he got the last piece of the fucking algorithm, he went back in time all the way to the point in Vietnam, however many weeks ago that was, so he could be with his wife who still loved him, and then he can kill himself. Yeah.
He fucking... What the... But why? Okay, what is literally the whole point? He's like, okay, I'm a giant piss baby, so I want the whole world to end, but also I still love my wife. I'm gonna beat the shit out of her and shoot her, and also ignore her when she acts like lovey-dovey towards me. But now that's my happy place, so I want to go back to that.
Good point. It's a very good point, and I don't have a response to you. I'm pretty fucking drunk right now. They send his wife from the past to be there to fucking stall for time to stop him from killing himself and destroying the universe. They send his wife, who got shot and is healed by going back through time, to be there and act like his past wife. And at the same time that's happening, they're at this place called Stalsk 12, this place in Russia where Andrei Sator grew up and mined fucking plutonium, which gave him the cancer he has.
Yeah.
But there is where he's trying to hide the algorithm in a time capsule and send it to the future. The Tenet people come up with this whole plan, and all of a sudden the scale of the Tenet like expands like crazy. Like all of a sudden, like the protagonist is like with this huge group of these this basically army. Like he didn't even know Tenet was this big. There's all these people involved, and they're doing the same technique that Sator did during the trade-off, where he would send himself back through time and experience it like that, and then be in contact with himself and going forward through time. So they each of them knew what the fuck was happening, so that they could have the jump on people who are only going one direction through time. So Tenet's doing the same thing. They get their own technology. They get their own fucking crazy turnstile where like soldiers can go through in spades and fucking reverse time themselves, right? And like I'm like so fucking drunk. This is like I'm losing track of everything. So they come up with this whole plan. It's basically like this whole army's there as a diversion so that a Splinter Cell group can go and steal the algorithm without Sator knowing. So they want Sator to think that the whole army there was just failing and they didn't actually get the algorithm. They wanted Sator to think that he actually won. They go, and the people that are part of the Splinter Cell group are the protagonist and this other dude. Can't remember his name, but like he's there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm heading this operation. Everyone needs to listen to me." And also the other group that's already gone backwards through time. Like they've already seen everything that's happened in reverse, so they can tell us what's going on, and then we know going forward through time. I don't know.
Yeah.
So all this like reverse battle scene happens at the same time where Sator's wife from the future is talking to also Sator from the future, but they're both pretending to be from the past, and she's just trying to stop him from killing himself for as long as possible so they can finish the operation that's happening at the exact same time. Also, the operation in Vietnam at the beginning, or at the opera at the beginning of the movie, is happening at the same time as Stalsk 12, as that whole army scene, which is happening at the same time as the trip in Vietnam. All of this shit's happening at the same time.
Why is she trying not to, like, to get him to not kill himself? What, as soon as he dies, the algorithm goes in?
If he kills himself without them getting the algorithm, I guess according to the timeline, the algorithm triggers with his death and he destroys the whole world. And that's what he wants. He wants to kill himself and destroy the whole world. The protagonist and this other dude are like, they're the Splinter Cell running away, and they're like, oh, we know once we get the algorithm and destroy it, we have to die. Like, no one can know where the algorithm is. You know, it has to be gone from history forever. And they get to this point where, like, the protagonist and the dude are locked behind this fucking gate, and they're like, there's this dead body at the gate, and they don't know what the dead body's about, but the protagonist sees it has a little fucking token from the beginning of the movie. One of Sator's goons has the algorithm, and he's like getting ready to drop it into a time capsule. The goon like puts a fucking walkie there so Sator and the protagonist can have an argument about their ideologies as he's there with his wife. He's like on the fucking microphone with the protagonist, and he's like, oh, you don't even know what you're fighting for, bitch. And the guy's like, I don't care, you don't have the right to destroy the whole world, blah 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 blah. They keep fighting. He has no way to get through the thing. Sator's like, oh, shoot this guy in the head, and the goon fucking turns around and he puts the gun up, and then as he does that, the dead guy like fucking reforms. Like he gets up and the fucking bullet goes like reverse through the guy's head, and like the guy's alive, and he like fights the fucking goon, and then he like unlocks the door and he runs off, and then like the protagonist fights the goon. They're down there and a fucking explosion is about to go off, which buries the fucking time capsule, right? Yeah. Even though they have the algorithm now. They beat the goon, they have the algorithm. They're like, okay, but we're fucked. Like, how do we get out of here? Yeah. This shit's about to explode and bury the time capsule. And then a rope drops down. And they're like, cool. And like, They grab the rope. It shows that the dude who dropped the rope down there was Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to him, because you gotta burn him up for a while.
Yeah, and he has the rope attached to a fucking Humvee, and he fucking, like, gasses it, and he's like, I don't know if anyone's attached to it, but I threw it down there, hopefully they got it, and he fucking gasses it, and pulls them both out, and they have the algorithm. So it's the protagonist, the other dude, and Robert Pattinson. They have the algorithm. The third dude breaks it into 3 parts, and he gives it to each of them. And he's like, okay, like, none of us can know, like, where this algorithm is. No one can be alive through this. And he's like, but the mission is we hide it and then we kill ourselves. But how about we decide when we want to kill ourselves? And he gives each of them a fucking piece of the thing. And then he bails. Robert Pattinson's like, he fucking takes his piece of the algorithm, he gives the protagonist, and he clicks it back in, gives his piece to the protagonist. The protagonist has 2/3 of the algorithm. And he's like, oh, there's something I gotta go do. And he turns around and he has a fucking token on his bag. And he's like, wait. Like, he realizes the dead dude traveling fucking reverse backwards through time that unlocked the door for them and helped fight the goon was him. And that's when he dies. And he's like, no, like, you don't have to die. Maybe we can fix this. And he's like, no, what happens, happens, man. And he's like, is there any way we can change it? And he's like, no. And he's like, from my perspective, this is the end of a beautiful friendship. But from yours, it's the beginning. And he's like, years in your future and years in my past is when we actually meet. And we get to know each other really well. And, like, the protagonist starts fucking crying because, like, this is his homie, you know? And he didn't even know the whole time. This is one of his best friends that's, like, out there looking out for him. And, like, he was there at the opera and saved his fucking life. He's like, but you know what happens, happens. So I gotta go down there and I gotta do it. I gotta unlock that door and help you through. The wife of fucking Sator fucking, she shoots him. And she fucking dumps his body in the ocean. She's like, hey, motherfucker, guess what? You lost, bitch. And she fucking shoots him in the chest. And he's like, ah! And he dies. And then the bearded dude is there and they get... I forgot something.
Dang it.
Whoop.
I'll go get some drink. Sorry.
Okay.
I finished mine.
Okay. I gotta take a pee. Ooh. Okay, so I can't remember what it is that I forgot, so we need to rewind time and figure out what I forgot so I can take this shot. So what did I mention last?
Robert Pattinson went to go die.
Uh-huh.
And the wife killed fucking Jacob Sartorius.
Oh, okay, so I remember something. It's not what I need to take the shot for, but when Robert Pattinson is mentioning that, like, they met each other in the past, he's like, oh, you're the one that recruited me. Like, this whole operation is your operation. Tenet is your fucking baby. I don't know if that's what I forgot, but I did forget to mention that. So we'll say that's what I forgot, I guess.
Okay.
So that means they talked about it a little bit earlier in the movie, like the grandfather paradox. Like, if you go back in time and kill your grandfather so that you're never born, then you're never born to go back in time to kill your grandfather. It's the same thing that happens in the movie.
You're spilling on yourself.
Whoop! If he's the one who recruited everyone and he's the one in charge of Tenet, then he recruited himself. If nobody recruited him, then he would never be the boss of Tenet.
Is he the one that did this then?
I don't know who invented the gesture.
Well, but, like, if he didn't... Isn't that who recruited him? Was the fucking had to do it to him guy?
But that dude was probably under his orders.
Mm.
Or under someone else's orders who were under his orders. At some point he told... This might be what I forgot to tell you. That he told Priya that he took the wife back in the past. Priya's like, oh, she knows too much about Tenet. She can't stay alive. And he's like, no, she's okay. He's like, give me your word that you won't kill her. And she's like, my word doesn't mean anything. And he's like, you're not gonna kill her. And she's like, fine. He tells the fucking lady, he's like, here's my phone number, just call and leave a message and it'll get to the future. So she leaves a message, she's like, oh, someone's watching me, and then the person who's watching her was Priya, so fucking the protagonist shows up and he fucking kills Priya. He's like, oh, I wasn't working for you, you and me were working for me. And she's like, oh, and she's like, so I'm here to tie up loose ends and you're here to tie up loose ends, so I'm the loose end. And he's like, yep, and he fucking kills her.
Okay. This is why it couldn't be a Batman movie.
There's this really, really corny line where Robert Pattinson is explaining, like, oh, if the algorithm gets set into motion, everything gets destroyed. And she's, like, laying there, like, with her gunshot wound, like, dying. And she's like, including my son. And it's like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that's the whole movie. Pretty much. Like,
Okay.
he gets the algorithm, he realizes Robert Pattinson's his best friend in his future, but Robert Pattinson's past, because Robert Pattinson's doing all this crazy back and forth time travel shit. And the chick, the wife, the person she was jealous of was herself, and after killing her own husband, the protagonist kills Priya because the Priya wants to kill the wife, which the protagonist cares about the wife for some reason.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out why he gives it so much of a shit.
There's also a popular fan theory that the wife's son is Robert Pattinson. Like, he grows up and becomes Robert Pattinson. which is kind of neat, I guess, because like one of the videos I was watching, I'll put it in the description. Don't worry. There's a video I watched. The guy who made the video, he was talking about how like the kid was probably Robert Pattinson, because Robert Pattinson, he changed his accent for the movie, he dyed his hair for the movie. None of the other characters had to do that, so it's like, why would he have to change his accent and his hair color unless he was, you know, trying to look more similar to the kid, and the accent more similar to the wife, who had kind of like a more posh British accent compared to Robert Pattinson's accent. But a thing I also had in mind when I was watching that is Christopher Nolan likes to make, at least in Inception, he made Leonardo DiCaprio look like him. So I was wondering if he was trying to make Robert Pattinson also look like him, with like the hair part and the hair color. Christopher Nolan's weird like that. I feel so strange. I haven't been this drunk in a long time.
I'm pretty sure the pictures of you from the night that you puked in Fate's litter box, you were wearing this exact shirt.
I'll put that picture up if I can find it. Yeah, this is my drunk shirt, I guess. I'm fucking blitzed right now, man. I only had 4 shots?
Yeah, 4.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, that's the movie.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, so...
It's pretty, I don't know.
It's pretty all over the place. It's a pretty complicated movie. Especially when I watched it the first time and I missed everything.
It seems needlessly complicated to me. It seems like they were like, yeah, these shots will look sick in reverse. And then they were like, but storytelling?
Okay, but no, like, the shots do look sick in reverse.
I believe that, but they're like, it was at the expense of good storytelling, it sounds like.
Yeah. We'll go with your concise version of the story.
Okay.
Just is literally like the shortest version you can of what I just explained to you.
Cold opening of terrorists taking over an opera. And then the protagonist is a CIA agent, and there's a Russian SWAT and American SWAT faking.
Or I don't know if they're American. They might be European.
Maybe, probably. I don't know if these people are all British.
I don't know where the opera is. I have no idea what country it's in.
Is everyone British or just Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson's British. The wife is British. The husband's Russian. Sator, he's Russian. The protagonist is American because he's from the CIA.
Pain. Okay, so there's fake Russian SWATs from a different government. And
Well, they're not from a government. They're just working for Sator. They're there trying to steal the algorithm.
okay.
I didn't explain that. My bad.
So yeah.
That's who the Russian SWAT team is.
Okay. So the Russian SWAT team is the fake SWAT.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And they're there for the algorithm, which protagonist thinks is plutonium.
They're there for the package, which is definitely not an innuendo. Everybody wants this package real bad. So he does a cool slide under the clothing thing.
It's sick.
Oh yeah, and everyone's knocked out. I think I mentioned that.
Yeah, that doesn't matter really to the plot, but yes.
Okay, well he gets the package, and then he gets caught, and they yank out his teeth.
Who does?
The protagonist.
Who yanks out the protagonist's teeth?
Some asshole, I'm guessing.
It's the Russians. They want to know who he works for.
And then he doesn't give up any info, so he kills himself. But he doesn't actually kill himself. He thinks he's killing himself. And then they're like, you're a good one because you'd rather die than give up your homies. And he's like, alright, fuck this shit, I'm out. And they're like, no, you wait. You gotta do it to him. And then he joins Tenet.
Joins Tenet.
And
He's
then-
gotta do it to him.
Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, he gets assigned to be with Robert Pattinson, who knows his drink preference. And they gotta find Lily Singh because there's backwards bullets. And Lily Singh is a lady, not a man, as previously assumed, named Prius. And she leaves out information because she's a bitch and stupid, apparently. And she's like making everything needlessly difficult for everybody else involved. And she's like, oh, you gotta track down this lady with some art to get to Jacob Sartorius.
Wrong!
What?
She tells him to meet with Michael Caine, who tells him that. Michael.
Does she already know that?
Michael, I don't know if she knows that.
Alright, so this one-off character tells him something that Priya could have told him. And
Christopher Nolan really just likes Michael Caine and likes putting him in his movies. This was the lame excuse to have Michael Caine in the movie. But yes.
yeah, and then they go and they find her and she's like, I don't know, I tried to sex him up and he said no. She's like, I left him on a boat. And they go to the boat and there's her jumping off, but she don't know it's her. I don't know, he's real hung up on this painting for some reason. That's why he doesn't love her anymore, is because of this painting. But then, they're like, oh, we'll handle the painting.
No, he
Why does that painting matter? He's obviously still supposed to love her, even though he beats the shit out of her and shoots her. So what's the point of the painting? They don't even take care of the painting.
The painting's a pretty big plot point until it's not.
Why?
I must have misrepresented the importance of the painting. Or the movie did. It's impossible to know in my current state. Okay, continue.
Okay.
We'll just assume you're right.
So yeah, they go. So they take care of the painting, break into the airport, pretending like they want to fucking tax evade with paintings. And then...
Who's they?
The protagonist and Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, you didn't explain Robert Pattinson's, his introduction.
Yes, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, they assigned him, and he was like, I know your drink preference. That's what I said.
Oh. I missed that, apparently. Or you did.
No, I did. I said
We'll
it.
find out in editing.
I'm right. He's drunk. Anyway. You made it up because you're crazy. Anyway, and then they fight backwards SWAT people, and then Robert Pattinson unmasks one of them, and he's like, oh no. Then he goes and stops the protagonist from murdering the guy. So he shoots him in the arm instead, and then they fuck off. And they're like, oh, we took care of the painting, but we didn't actually take care of the painting, which apparently the painting doesn't seem to get brought up again after this. Even though it seems like it was probably a big
It kind
deal.
of does. I think I glossed over that.
Why is this painting so important?
It's not.
Okay, so...
She thinks it is, but it's just his gambling, I can't think of a metaphor that fits. It's his bargaining chip, there we go. It's his bargaining chip because to her it's really important, but to him it's like, it's whatever.
Oh yeah, he said that he would never let her see her son again or something. Don't know why.
There's one point where it's super lame. He's about to beat her with a belt after she tries to kill him by dropping him off a boat. Didn't bring that part up at all. But he's like, if I can't have you, no one can.
Ew.
And it's really,
He had her.
it's really lame.
He's the reason why he doesn't have her. What?
It's really lame.
I have to pee.
Oh, this is gonna be a nightmare to edit. This is gonna be so much nonsense footage.
Alright, so they fight the backwards versions of themselves at the airport. I mean, Robert Pattinson did.
Wait, what?
I brought that up.
I feel like you skipped a little bit.
No.
Oh no, okay, go ahead. They don't know it's the backwards version of themselves yet, do they?
No, and I said that.
Okay.
Except for Robert Pattinson.
Okay.
And then they go back to Priya, right?
No, he does.
Only one
Robert
of them does?
Pattinson supposedly, I forgot to mention this, goddammit. I should be taking more shots for me explaining I forgot things, but Robert Pattinson isn't in on it until the handoff with the plutonium. And then the protagonist realized that the Robert Pattinson has been in on it all along. He's actually been a part of Tenet. Yeah. But up until that point, Robert Pattinson thinks the protagonist thinks that Robert Pattinson is just a CIA agent.
Yeah. He goes back to Priya, and she's like, oh, here's this information that I unnecessarily didn't tell you. I'm still hung up on that. She has backwards technology, even though she sent him to fucking Jacob Sartorius because he had backwards technology and she didn't understand it. She's like, oh, I just hand out these bullets, and then they came back backwards with these guns. Because of this guy. I know nothing about it, but she did. And she told him about it.
She might not have known at that time. I don't know.
Well, how did she get the technology then?
She says, the best way to fight fire is with fire.
I think she's just needlessly leaving out information.
Probably. I'll take your word for it. At this point, I can't even know if you're right or wrong.
And then she's like, oh, here's this cool plan to give the bad guy exactly what he wants. And they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. They do it, and the bad guy gets what he wants. I'm skipping a lot here, I'm realizing, but I just know he shoots his wife at some point. Or is that after? Oh no, okay, so yeah, that's after this. Yeah. So he gives the bad guy what he wants. Not on purpose.
Maybe, yeah.
But he gets kidnapped, and then the guy's like, well, you faked a handoff, and the guy was like, I guess so.
I'm realizing more and more how much I missed out on when I was explaining this to you. But yeah. As far as my explanation goes, you're correct.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Protagonist gives too much of a shit about this random dude's wife, I guess, and he's like, no, she can't die. I'll kill Priya in cold blood later, but that bitch can't die. And so he's like doing the most to save this girl's life, and she gets shot, and then she has reverse radiation or something. And somehow this sequence of events actually gets the guy to have the algorithm, and then he goes super backwards in time, and they go backwards in time for the reason I am not sure of.
Well, to reverse her reverse radiation.
Okay. And they drive backwards.
No, not they, just the protagonist.
The protagonist drives backwards, catches on reverse fire, which is actually cold, and has hypothermia.
Yep, that's all correct. These are things that happen.
And this guy gets fucked up a lot apparently. Or is this where they have to go to the airport? When do they go to the airport?
They go to the airport because they're traveling backwards in time, and they need to travel forwards in time.
So when
But the only technology they know that can reverse entropy is at the airport. So they make themselves get to the airport by getting in a shipping container.
So wait, there's a certain point in which he goes backwards in time by himself, and Robert Pattinson goes backwards in time with him at a different point?
No, they're going backwards through time at the same point, but the protagonist leaves by himself to try and stop the handoff, and Robert Pattinson stays behind with the chick to take care of her while she's reverse healing or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he gets hypothermia, recovers quickly apparently.
How does he get hypothermia?
Because he crashes the car and it catches on fire from fucking Jacob Sartorius.
Yes.
And then he gets hypothermia, because that's how things work.
Yes.
And then they go to the airport, I guess. Right?
Yes.
Okay, and they fight their forward selves.
No.
What? I keep
Well,
falling
yes.
backwards.
Well, backwards protagonist fights his forward self from the past.
Mm-hmm.
But Robert Pattinson doesn't fight. No one.
And they don't get skin-on-skin contact.
Yes.
Because then they die.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how they go forward again.
Uh-huh.
And then?
Well, he gets through the machine. Robert Pattinson gets through it later. I forgot to mention that. That's another shot I should have taken. I forgot. I can't take another shot. I'll vomit.
Fucking bomb.
Okay.
Okay.
They go backwards in time again at some point. I forgot to mention that. To get back to the point where Vietnam was. But there's a lot of things I forgot to... So much shit happens in this movie, man. I just can't even fucking... Okay, no, go ahead.
So they go backwards in time, and then they go forwards in time, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're trying to go after... They're trying to do this wonky thing where, like, the bad guy doesn't think he doesn't have the algorithm. They gotta steal it from him after he thinks he already has it.
I at this point, I can't know if what you're saying is correct or not. So I'm just gonna say, yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, that's what I gathered, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Sure.
They wait until he goes backward in time to go be with his wife, because that's ultimately what he wanted, was to be with the wife that he beat the shit out of and shot.
Yeah, he loves his wife who he shot.
Fucking threatened to never let her see her son again.
Mm-hmm. Everyone will die, including my son. Yeah.
At some point, it stops being fucking plutonium and starts being the algorithm. I am not sure in which point. One of the info dumps that fucking Prius does because she likes to not fucking give the full story, even though she has full fucking ability to. And then he goes back in time.
I think you're technically correct this whole time.
He goes back to Vietnam.
Who's he?
Jacob Sartorius. To be with his loving wife. But it's not his loving wife. It's his beat the fuck up and shot wife.
Yeah.
And she's trying to stall for time while they break into the facility to get the algorithm. And the only reason why the protagonist doesn't die after monologuing with the fucking bad guy through a walkie-talkie through time.
No, they're at the same time through the walkie-talkie.
What?
The walkie-talkies at the same time.
What?
Yep.
Fuck off. Anyway. They're monologuing to each other. No one cares. The goon goes to shoot the protagonist, but a dead body reincarnates and beats the shit out of him and runs away and unlocks the door.
Yeah.
And then the protagonist beats the shit out of him, and it's supposed to be like a time capsule for some reason, so so the whole building, the whole underground, apparently, facility is supposed to collapse. They have no way out, except a rope gets dropped. And Robert Pattinson's like, I don't know how these bitches grabbed it, but we gotta go. So he floors it, because the rope's tied to a car. And then he's like, fuck yeah, we saved the day. He's like, alright, him and this other guy. Him, the protagonist, and this other guy are like, the other guy's like, it's time to kill ourselves. I tried. It wasn't your shot glass. Your poor chair. This bitch.
I got a dustpan and a mini broom. Okay.
You left.
Ta-da. I have no idea what you said last.
I don't know either, but it made you laugh pretty hard apparently.
I think that's it. I'm gonna get a slice of bread.
We thought it was going to be foreshadowing for breaking the shot glass. I guess it was foreshadowing for breaking something, unfortunately.
We're pretty close to the end.
So, I remember what I said. The protagonist, Robert Pattinson, and the other guy were like, we're gonna go kill ourselves now. And they had to break the algorithm up into 3 parts, and they were gonna go hide them. And the other guy goes and fucks off to die. And Robert Pattinson's like, no, you take my bird. And then the protagonist is like, why? And then he like turns around, Robert Pattinson, and there's a token on his bag. And then the protagonist is like, oh, you're the guy that died in there and reincarnated. Not reincarnated. Came back to life and beat the shit out of that guy. And Robert Pattinson's like, yeah. And he's like, you don't have to do this, bro. And Robert Pattinson's like, but that's just the way it be. And then he goes, he dies. And then the lady, I don't know, the fucking guy's like, oh, you can call me and I'll get it in the future. And she's like, okay. And he's like, yeah, because that's how everything works. Oh yeah, Robert Pattinson was like, you're the creator of Tenet, by the way. And the guy's like, wow. And Robert Pattinson's like, in my past and in your future, we become great friends. And then, for some reason, he just gives so much of a shit about this wife lady. So he's like, yeah, no, she's fine. She doesn't need to die, even though she knows all this crazy shit. And this other lady's like, no, she needs to die. And he's like, you won't kill her. And she's like, yeah. But then she's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill her in the future, apparently. And the guy's like, nope, time to cap Prius, even though, like, she was pretty valuable to this whole thing, I guess, even though she was, like, being purposefully coy and leaving out information, I guess. Maybe I would've capped her, too. And then she dies, and that's apparently the end, because that's, I think, where you ended it.
I'm pretty sure that's the end.
Yeah, then I guess he goes off and be Robert Pattinson's friend in the future, assuming anything that they talked about made any sense.
Yeah. You know, the first time I watched the movie, I was like, this is a fucking crazy ass masterpiece. I don't know what happened, but it was awesome. The second time I watched it and I understood what was happening, I was like, okay, this movie's kind of stupid, but like the general like idea of it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But now this time right now, we didn't watch it, but you explaining it, I'm convinced again that it was a great movie.
I'm a storytelling genius, obviously.
Yeah, I think you're a master of the craft, man.
Yeah, I probably won't ever watch Tenet. I'm sure it would be fun to watch, but if I had to sit there and think about it, I probably would be like, what? Like I did while you were explaining it.
Where's the lid to the Jaeger? Because this Jaeger is lidless.
You threw it like forever ago. Yeah, you needed more of that.
Yeah, I need more, I think.